Thank you, everybody. My name is Gift. I'm a media and development consultant in Zimbabwe. And for my presentation, let me start with a conclusion. I stand for the ideals of access to information and media diversity. And whoever wants to stand in the way of the train that represents these ideals will only end in grief. But those who stand in support of these ideals will inherit the kingdom of a fairer and just world. I was born in Kadoma, which is a relatively small city of about 100,000 people in Zimbabwe. I was born just after we got our independence in 1980. And within the context of the euphoria of independence, we believed that as a new constitutional democracy, we were working together to rebuild a new country, a nation that would stand strong, particularly on the ideals of a free and vibrant media. This is now 36 years after our independence, and I always try to reflect on our journey so far. But just to dramatize that point, 36 years after independence, but there is a story of 36 years before independence. And our media sector, 36 years before independence, was very, very narrow to an extent that it created discomfort amongst the citizens. We had one public broadcaster that was talking to the citizens instead of engaging the citizens. We had one public broadcaster that was being used to perpetuate a colonial administration. In short, we had a media environment that was used to exclude and to suppress the masses in the country. Now, this was not good for the majority population. Hence, young men and young women took up arms to turn around the situation because it wasn't sustainable for the country. That's how then we fought until we liberated ourselves in 1980. But this is now 36 years after we fought the monster that we had before independence. Whereas before independence, we all agreed that our situation was not very sustainable. We all agreed that we had a cancer that seriously needed chemotherapy. We agreed that we had rabid dogs that needed vaccination. 36 years after independence, we have not made much progress in that context. Today in my country, we still have one television channel just like years before independence. That is in the hands of the state. We have public radio that still speaks to the population instead of speaking or affording the nation opportunities to share ideas. We also have a public newspaper that suppresses and perpetuates the leadership of a minority over the majority. In short, we still have that situation of suppression and exclusion through the media. Now I believe my role in this space as a media and development consultant is then out of the generational mandate that we all have to change the world around us. And that's the work that I've been involved in the last 10 years. This work enjoins me and my colleagues to focus on 5 strategic areas almost on a daily basis. The first battle that we deal with is on engaging government and all our policymakers to at least appreciate that a free and dynamic media in this century is a necessity for social, cultural, political development. Just bringing that awareness and appreciation takes a lot of energy and it takes a lot of time. When we started on this campaign, there were so many negative political connotations around our work and the individuals involved. It was like the period before independence where people are labeled in order to be persecuted. But we have not given up. 10 years to date, now government at least can afford to talk to us seated on the same table. The second strategic objective that we deal with almost on a daily basis is to try and change the laws of the land so that they accommodate access to media and media diversity in a very broad sense. It has been 10 years in this work and we've scored some strategic goals. Our constitution now by and largely acknowledges that citizens must enjoy access to information and they can own and run media houses in the country. However, there is still a very huge dichotomy between what the Constitution says on one hand and what is essentially in practice on the other hand. But on that, we are not giving up. We continue the fight. The third strategic objective that we deal with is to make communities appreciate that even under the current circumstances, they can still use alternative media platforms to share ideas, to share knowledge, to educate and entertain others. Thanks a lot to social media, we can effectively rally our communities to use the social platforms, Facebook included, to share, to communicate, and to develop themselves. The fourth strategic objective that we focus on is all about keeping communities hopeful. It is one thing to fight in a revolution. It is another thing to retain hope. Without hope, you may lose the steam and the power to fight. So we are always researching, we are always engaging, and making sure that the communities remain hopeful that one day, despite the setbacks that they've suffered over the years, they will ultimately be able to broadcast or to live in a world and a country that cherishes a media environment. The last point that I will make relating to our strategic objectives is this world is a learning platform. You keep learning, then you are out of the game. We are therefore standing as facilitators, researchers, panelists to young generations that are just growing up in Zimbabwe right now, for them to appreciate the ideals of a free media, the ideals of a media that is answerable to the population, but most importantly, the ideals of how a good media can be an enabler in the development discourse of the country. Thank you.